First, I sincerely thank the organizers of this conference for giving me this opportunity, particularly to Professor Peter Easton and Laurie Marsh for excellent organization. I will start by clarifying that I wholeheartedly support ESG causes. I see the damaging impact of global warming in my home country, that is India. Personally, I believe in low carbon footprint. I still drive the same car that I drove 10 years back when I lived in Chicago. My talk is not against ESG causes, but against the rush to create a unified ESG reporting system. In my view, this rush is not only harmless, but could potentially be harmful to the society. I'm going to make 5 points to support my case. First, creating a good information system requires proper identification of its users and an in depth understanding of their objective functions. When it comes to ESG causes, neither the users nor their objective functions are well defined. One day we're talking about shareholder value, the next day we're talking about lender security, racial diversity, gender diversity, biodiversity, corporate governance, wealth disparity, air, water, and soil pollution, workers' welfare, local needs, tax compliance, and maybe many more dimensions. A summary metric can be created only if all objectives or all functions point to one direction. Like in accounting, increasing revenues while decreasing costs leads to higher profits. In the ESG context, the objective functions of different stakeholders are bound to differ and often conflict with each other. If a company could create shareholder value by simply doubling its wages while emitting drinking quality water, then it should have already done so. The fact is that companies often must play a zero-sum game in managing different stakeholder objectives. In my opinion, a unified single summary metric for ESG simply does not exist. So it would be futile exercise to find one. But let's also recall accountants' expertise in creating such a summary metric. Long time ago, accountants were trusted with just one job: create a system that periodically conveys the changes in value for just one stakeholder, that is, the shareholder. How did accountants perform? Let's look at the two most important summary metrics in traditional financial reporting: earnings and book value. Both are now largely irrelevant for investors' decision making in this knowledge driven economy. My second point is that different organizations need different information systems. A good information system takes into account not only the needs of its audience, but also the characteristics of the organization producing that information. In my opinion, it is not possible to create a single information system that works across industries, across business models, and across firm life cycles. For example, do we want the same carbon footprint reporting from a steel maker as well as from a software maker? Even if we could create such a one-size-fits-all information system, how relevant would it be for decision making? Again, let's consider accountants' performance in creating such a one-size-fits-all information system for a metric that we all very well understand, that is revenues. It took FASB and ISB 16 years to create a common revenue recognition standard. Even then, its implementation went through two false starts, and the user community has already started complaining about it. Third, I'm going to question accountants' expertise in ESG matters. Accountants are at best trained in basic economics and some business concepts. Do they really understand the technicalities of production process, supply chain, and human issues? Do they know ESG matters any better than specialized agencies like OSHA for worker welfare or EPA for emission standards? Both of these agencies employ an army of PhDs with specialized knowledge. So, what is the problem with these amateur attempts? The problem is that accountants, with count in their middle name, have a tendency to take the easy path. They create systems based on what they can easily measure and verify. They shy away from difficult to measure but meatier concepts. For example, accountants have thrown up their hands when it comes to intangibles because they cannot measure or verify them. Auditors are likely to perpetuate these limitations because they largely focus on reducing their litigation costs rather than producing something that is decision relevant to the society. Fourth, there are infinite dimensions of ESG. Given a choice, companies would highlight the dimension that show them in best light. For example, there is no doubt that Microsoft has low carbon footprint, but it uses innovative schemes like double Irish with a Dutch sandwich to reduce its taxes. Its effective tax rate is less than half of yours and mine. Would Microsoft highlight its low carbon footprint or tax saving schemes in its ESG report? In other words, firms would lobby to get their best dimensions in ESG report and then try to game the system.
And Anup, your comments are obviously resonating with the audience. A question that arises naturally is, current ESG reporting may not be good, but could it in fact be harmful? Are there negative impacts?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so far I've argued that it's filled with noise and perhaps it's a waste of society's resources. But I will argue that it's not just harmless, but it could potentially be harmful. And let me give you an example. And actually, that was going to be my fifth point, which is the most important one. I believe that ESG metrics would now provide a new justification for the underperformance of fund managers. We already know that on average, adjusted for costs and risks, most fund managers are underperforming the markets. Fund managers would now claim that they were maximizing some esoteric ESG metric and not chasing shareholder value. So ESG based systems and ESG based metric would give a new excuse to fund managers to justify their underperformance. So to just sum up, I see little merit in rushing into creating a unified, integrated reporting system, especially by accountants who have little or no technical knowledge of the subject, have rather poor record in their own field, and claim to be acting on some unknown pressing needs of the society. And let me express my opinion on what can perhaps be done. If the society really needs, if it really cares about ESG causes, then there are other ways of promoting their favorite cause. For example, start by electing a leader who can properly fund and empower specialized regulatory agencies like EPA and OSHA. Individual segments of the society, like you and me, can perhaps use crowdfunding, charity, or purchasing power to improve the viability of corporations that promote their favorite cause. I think that using this investment route or shareholder activism to change the fortunes of the company is not the right way to go. We have seen some such outcomes when Young Turks supported the share prices of unviable companies such as AMC and GameStop. To conclude, I believe that rushing headlong in trying to create a uniform, integrated ESG reporting system is not just harmless or mere wastage of society's resources, it could potentially be harmful to the society. We need a more patient and thoughtful discussion before proceeding further. Thank you for inviting for this talk.